Lucas Wilson is with Jaunt. He serves as producer, sometimes executive producer on a number of the projects, and we'll hopefully talk a bit about a lot of areas that Jaunt is in right now. But first we have to kind of make fun of your history in the industry. You worked in 3D, didn't you?
I did, and I did, and I have the scars to prove it.
Excellent. So you're just progressively working into a more and more detailed niche, aren't you?
It's kind of my mission in life, yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look past that for a moment. So in terms of the perception of Jaunt and who the company is and how content creators can work with Jaunt, I think it's fair to say that there's been a misunderstanding about how you can do business with Jaunt. So can you speak to that misconception?
Sure. I function as a producer for Jaunt, and I've EP'd a couple of projects, and I also have my own independent VR production company called Supersphere. And there is a perception in the industry for a long time, I think, that that Jaunt was a company that you sort of needed the secret handshake in order to be able to play with, in order to be able to get cameras, in order to be able to get access. And there is some truth to that, because Jaunt was, I think, a startup. Even though it's very well known in the industry that Jaunt got a lot of money and is building a big organization, is doing a bunch of cool stuff, it's still essentially a startup that was launching technology. And as anybody that's been on the front end of technology knows, if you give premature technology to a production crew, that usually doesn't go so well. And it can sometimes very publicly not go so well. So when I first started producing for Jaunt, I would say, gosh, 7 or 8 months ago, I started producing projects for Jaunt. The technology even then was still a little premature, and was something that I think that without having internal access to Jaunt engineers and to Jaunt staff, if you just gave the camera in a rental setting to a crew and said, "You crazy kids, go knock yourselves out," it wouldn't have gone well. But Jaunt is part of the result of raising a bunch of money and having a bunch of super smart people working at the company, is that in the past 8 months, I've seen the platform, the camera and the platform, and the platform both for post-production and for stitching, and the distribution platform become leaps and bounds, to the point where now, obviously, you know, the camera is ready for rentals, and the fact that the cameras are out a lot, I think, speaks to that. And one of the things about VR that I like to talk about is that when you're on a production, and when you're doing a production, it's just production. It's a camera, and you still have a camera crew, and you still have G&E, and you still have all the other stuff that goes with production. Some of the stuff that you do around a production is different, and how you frame things is obviously different, how you light things is different, but it's just a production. And if you have a crew on set, then you need a camera that's reliable, you need it to function, and you need it to do things. So I would say now that when I crew up Jaunt shoots, and when I go out and do Jaunt shoots, it's just production. I have camera crews, and I have everything that goes with production, and we get a camera, we go out, we shoot, we post, and we do projects.
And that is really a perspective that I think is worth sharing with this audience here. How many folks here would classify themselves as a producer? All right, so that's a lot of you. So these are your colleagues in terms of fellow producers. So, how has virtual reality production been from a producer's standpoint?
Terrible. You know, I have a long history in production and post. I was a front of house touring audio engineer for a while, and that's fun in your 20s, and then it's not. And I was an editor for a while. I was an online editor for a while. I sold software for a while. I worked in the 3D world for James Cameron at Cameron Pace for a while, and at 3Reality for a while. I've done sort of a little bit of everything. And about 2 years ago, I saw an Oculus demo for the first time, and I was like, hey, this is cool. And through a combination of production chops and a love of shiny objects, I raised my hand and said, I'm a VR producer. And people started giving me jobs, and then I just started not screwing them up. And people were like, oh, he must know what he's doing. But speaking as a producer, the thing that's interesting to me is that a lot of time technology leads creative in VR. There are a lot of people doing pitches. There's a lot of work out there. There's a starvation of content out in the VR industry right now. But as soon as you do my daughter. As soon as you do As soon as you do a pitch or as soon as you're in a meeting, the very next question is, okay, what have you done? Because people are still afraid of it, and they still want to see what you've done, and they want to make sure that you have the technical chops to be able to back that up. So I think the difference in producing content, in producing VR content, is that you have to have, if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go out with a red or I'm going to go out with an airy, that's so well known, and the production workflows and the post workflows for that are so well known that people don't really worry about it. They just sort of assume that you know how to do that. In VR, you have to have your crews, and you have to have your post, and you have to have your onset work much more buttoned up, and you have to be very, very sure of what you're doing, because VR, working with the Jaunt, whether it's a Jaunt ONE or any other VR rig, it's like the best analogy I can think of for me is the very, very early days of Red. When Red first came out, and it was the Red 1, and it was Red Cine, and I saw people all the time working themselves into bad corners because they really didn't know what they were doing with the footage or the post, and once you go down that rat hole, it's very, very expensive to get out of that rat hole. And VR is the same way, I think, that you absolutely have to make sure that your post pipeline, and your onset and post pipeline is really buttoned up from the very get-go, otherwise you're going to work yourself into some very expensive problems.
Well said. So in terms of what Jaunt provides to content creators, of course, we have the Jaunt ONE camera, which is simply one of the greatest cameras ever made for virtual reality. It's designed for and purpose-built. 24 lenses, 24 separate functioning modules, along with the computational backend, the so-called Jaunt Cloud platform, which is able to ingest that footage and deliver. How is Jaunt working with content creators in terms of providing that post-production resource?
Sure. The interesting thing is that over the past 2 years, both with Jaunt and my own company, I've produced probably, I don't know, 50 or 60 full VR deliverables, everything from apps on the Oculus Store to 360 mono video. And I can say I've shot, if you can duct tape 2 cameras together and get 360 out of it, I've shot with it, guarantee you. And I can say without hesitation that on the post-production, on the production and post-front, the camera and the cloud platform combined is best of class in the industry right now. It really is. Now the VR world changes on a very regular basis. That may not be true tomorrow, but today it's true. And the best example of that I can give you is that the way the Jaunt platform basically works is that you shoot, you upload footage, it stitches, and then you download footage. It stitches faster than real time. So when I shoot 5 minutes and I upload to the cloud, in less than 5 minutes I have a mono, stereo, and web MP4 that I can download and start importing to editorial. And that's really damn cool, number one. And it's really high quality too. That's what Jaunt calls it lumograph. For our world, think of it as dailies. You know, it's best light and one light and offline and online all over again. There's the low quality lumograph stitching, and then there's higher quality stitching. But the low quality stitching, it's a bad word for it, because the low quality stitching is actually at a level that's final quality coming out of AVP Pro or a lot of other tools that you sometimes use. But all that stuff of uploading it and it being fast and all that means is that you can do dailies. Right? You can shoot and you can get your material back stitched and into editorial in a time frame that your clients are expecting. When you're shooting Red, when you're shooting Arri, when you're shooting any other camera, everybody's used to getting ProRes out the back end, or maybe there's a very small processing step after you shoot. With the Jaunt Cloud, it's the same thing. You shoot and you get material back very quickly and can go into editorial. And that's really important. So that's the tech side. As far as the access side, there's 2 big things going on. Number one is that, well, Radiant Images is obviously a rental partner for Jaunt, and Radiant was, should I talk about that?
Sure.
All right. Radiant was, the right choice for Jaunt to partner with at first because, A, they're a great rental, forget about VR, they're just a great buttoned-up rental facility, and nice people and smart people, great. But they have, for the past little while, they've consistently been on the leading edge of VR, and they've consistently been on the leading edge of bringing those workflows to the market, bringing that technology to the market, and supporting productions that are in those technologies. So Radiant just makes sense as the first partner to launch with. If you shoot with the Jaunt camera, then you get an account on the Jaunt Cloud. So you shoot with the Jaunt camera, you can get an account on the Jaunt cloud and automatically start stitching your stuff. Now, one of the cool things that Jaunt has done is that when you shoot with the Jaunt camera, and also when you shoot with the Ozo, because the Jaunt cloud is technically a camera-neutral platform, but of course the first camera it's going to support is the Jaunt ONE for stitching. The Ozo is the next camera, and the Ozo is also supported for stitching on the Jaunt cloud. When you shoot with a Jaunt or an Ozo for your dailies stitches, unlimited, it's free. So just upload as much, crunch all you want, and you can just get dailies for free. It's like having a data DIT on set that you can get ProRes or whatever out of the camera and just crunch all you want. So you get an account as far as access that you can immediately upload and start stitching to. Last week or 2 weeks ago or something like that, I think it was last week, Jaunt also launched what's called Jaunt Publishing. If you go to the Jaunt website right now, there's a big button in the upper right-hand corner that says Creators. And you punch that button, and then it takes you to a nice-looking, nicely designed web page that allows you to submit content, and allows you to submit third-party content to the Jaunt distribution platform, to the Jaunt app. And Jaunt is very, very clear about it that, you know, Jaunt doesn't own your footage. Jaunt doesn't want to own your footage. It's from a creator's perspective, it is another option for you to distribute your content. And I can tell you, sort of having a little bit of the inside window at Jaunt, that Jaunt internally also cares very, very deeply about the creators that it works with and the companies that it works with, and the benefits you can get as a creator if you create that relationship with Jaunt. The technology and the marketing and the PR benefits that you can get from the company can be substantial. As a creator, it's a good company to work with because they have the entire tool set from ideation to distribution. There are a lot of people that know how to do VR at Jaunt that can help you out. They have the camera, they have the stitching platform, they have the distribution platform. So it's just it didn't used to be a very open company, and you used to have sort of the secret handshake. It's not anymore. You can rent a camera, if you don't have the camera and you just want to upload your footage, you can upload your footage. As the company matures, I would say, the access to the company is also maturing. They're becoming much, much more open to the creative community as a whole.
Excellent. And that really is something that, as some of the initial clients that have approached us about renting the Jaunt camera, we've had to dispel, is that misconception about who owns content. You, the creator of the content, own the content. Jaunt provides a lot of great options in terms of publishing, but at the end of the day, your content is your content. One of the kind of elephants in the room that we probably need to talk about, 24 cameras spitting out some fairly high bit rate. When we talk about uploading to the cloud, what does that actually entail?
A secret handshake into one Wilshire.
No.
No. No, you know, that's a good question. It's 24 cards that are in the camera, and you have to bring out 24 cards and deal with it, right? Two things about that. Number one, as soon as you start working with the camera, Jaunt has its own software that deals with sort of the traditional data DIT workflow. And it's incredibly simple. I mean, you have SD card readers, and you plop them in, and the software automatically recognizes the card. And on the head of every file, Jaunt's writing camera-specific metadata, so that as soon as you pop a card in, it goes, oh, okay. Is that me? I'm a producer, I'm used to yelling. As soon as you pop a card in, there's camera-specific metadata on the head of every file, so that as soon as you pop a card in and the software is open, it goes, oh, okay, you're camera number 2, do-do-do-do-do, and it pops in all the media, sucks it all in, puts it on a drive, so that the software does the data DIT work for you. And there's 3 steps. There's bringing in all the footage from the camera. There's a process called organizing the footage, which is sort of a troubleshooting process that is making sure that everything's aligned correctly and seeing if there are any trouble cameras, doing some audio sync. So there's the organization process, and then there's an upload process. And the upload process, it's a lot of data. I mean, very roughly, I think it's about 1 terabyte an hour of shot footage, I think. That sounds about right. And people sort of go, oh my God, it's a lot of footage, I have to deal with uploading it. Yes, you have to deal with uploading it. But you're either gonna deal with uploading it, or you're gonna deal with getting that data to somebody with AVP Pro or some other stitching software. That's gonna take a day or 2 to turn it around. So it's problem A or problem B. And as a producer, I go with problem A because all I have to do is find an upload line, because I know the stitching is gonna be done automatically, and it's just gonna work. A good example is I did a like 8 or 9 day production in Israel earlier this year, and we were going to be in Jerusalem and in Galilee and a couple of other places. And I hired a good local crew, and I told my local told my local locations guy, I was like, find me the one Wilshire of Jerusalem. You know, find me a fast network connection. I just need a fast network connection, and that's exactly what he did. Found the one Wilshire of Jerusalem that was publicly available, and we shot during the day. Handed cards to the data guy, and he had the night shift, and he went and sat in a room and uploaded, and we had dailies the next morning. It's just another problem to deal with. But it was either that and knowing that I was going to have dailies the next morning, or trying to figure out how I was going to set up a workstation to do stitching on set somehow, which is just a different problem. And if you do A and B, then chances are that A is going to be faster if you can access a network connection. You can do the stitching on the computer. You can do stitching if you're out in the wilds of British Columbia shooting something, you know, and you really genuinely don't have access to a network connection. You can do stitching on set, and you can do stitching on the computer. It's just not as high quality and it's not as fast, but it's available if you want.
All right.
Is that the question?
That was the answer too.
Excellent.
Actually a great answer, because it really does underscore that the fundamental role in many ways of a producer is problem solver, and choosing the problems to solve is important. Now, based on the demand of our clients at Radiant Images, one of the services that we are now offering is through extremely high bandwidth connections that we have into this building, the option of bringing footage back along with the camera and using our connectivity to upload to the cloud. So that's something that if your project is amenable to that, you can talk with our rental agents. Rental agents, wave. Number of folks here that you can talk with later on.